The rain was coming down hard that Tuesday evening, turning the streets into rivers of gray water. Inside Ruby's diner, Rachel wiped down the last few tables, her feet aching from another 12-hour shift. The clock on the wall showed 9:45 p.m. 15 more minutes and she could finally go home. She looked at the crumpled bills in her apron pocket. $42 in tips. Not great, but it would have to do. Her mother's medication cost $80, and the refill was due tomorrow. Rachel did the math in her head for the 100th time that day. With her paycheck still 3 days away, she'd have to choose between the medicine and groceries again. Table 6 needs cleaning, her manager, Tony, called out from behind the counter. He was always like that, finding one more thing for her to do right before closing time. Rachel grabbed her cleaning spray and headed to the corner booth. Through the rain-streaked windows, she could see the empty street outside. Most people had the good sense to stay home on a night like this. That's why she was surprised when the door chimed and a man walked in. He was soaked to the bone. His jacket looked like it had seen better days, and his jeans had paint stains all over them. He had a couple days' worth of stubble on his face, and his dark hair was plastered to his forehead from the rain. He stood in the doorway for a moment, water dripping onto the floor, looking almost apologetic for being there. "We're closing soon," Tony announced loudly from the counter. Not even looking up, the man nodded quickly. "I know, I'm sorry. Just a coffee and maybe a sandwich? I'll eat fast." Something in his voice made Rachel walk over before Tony could say no. "It's okay. Come sit down. You look freezing." The man gave her a grateful smile and slid into the nearest booth. Rachel brought him a menu, but he barely glanced at it. "Just a coffee and a grilled cheese, please. Whatever's easiest." "I'll get that started for you," Rachel said, noticing how his hands were shaking slightly. Whether from cold or something else, she couldn't tell. She brought him coffee first, and he wrapped both hands around the mug like he was trying to absorb every bit of warmth from it. While his sandwich was cooking, Rachel went back to her cleaning, but she kept glancing over at him. There was something about the way he sat there, staring into his coffee cup, that reminded her of her father in those last few months before he passed away, that same look of someone carrying a weight too heavy to share. When she brought his sandwich, he thanked her quietly and ate slowly, making it last. Rachel had seen that before, too. People who weren't sure where their next meal was coming from always ate that way. Tony was in the back doing the cash count when the man finished eating. He sat there for a moment, then started patting his pockets. First his jacket, then his jeans. His face went pale. No, he muttered, checking his pockets again, more frantically this time. Rachel walked over. "Is everything okay?" He looked up at her and she could see real panic in his eyes. "My wallet." "It's gone. I had it this morning, I know I did. Someone must have taken it. The subway was crowded and He ran his hands through his damp hair. "I'm so sorry. I can come back tomorrow and pay. I swear I will. I just got paid today and the money's in my bank account, but my cards were in my wallet and..." Tony came out from the back and his expression hardened immediately when he saw what was happening. "Another dine and dash? You think I'm stupid?" "No, sir, I promise. My wallet was stolen. I can show you my ID." The man reached for his pocket again, then stopped. "My ID was in my wallet, too." "That's convenient," Tony said, crossing his arms.
"You know what?
I'm calling the cops. I'm tired of people thinking they can just walk in here and eat for free." "Tony, wait," Rachel said, but he was already reaching for the phone behind the counter. The man stood up, his face red with embarrassment. "Please, I'm telling the truth. I work at a construction site 2 blocks from here. You can call my foreman. His number is..." He trailed off helplessly. Rachel looked at the bill on the table. $8.50. She looked at Tony, who had the phone in his hand. Then she looked at the man, who looked like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a $10 bill from her tips. "Here, I've got it." Tony stared at her. "Rachel, what are you doing?" "That's your money." "It's fine, really." She handed the bill to Tony, who took it reluctantly, shaking his head like she was the biggest fool he'd ever seen. The man looked at Rachel with something close to disbelief. "You don't have to do that. You don't even know me." "Nobody should have the cops called on them for an $8 sandwich," Rachel said simply. "We all have bad days and I'll pay you back. I promise." "What's your name?" "Rachel. And don't worry about it, seriously." "I'm Daniel," he said, extending his hand. His grip was firm despite everything. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means." Tony had already gone back to counting his register, muttering under his breath about soft-hearted employees. Rachel walked Daniel to the door. "Listen," she said quietly. "Ruby's serves a free coffee to anyone who comes in before 6 a.m. No questions asked. It's not much, but—" Daniel smiled for the first time, and it completely changed his face. "Thank you, Rachel. Really." She watched him walk out into the rain, pulling his thin jacket tighter around himself. As she finished closing up the diner, she thought about the $10 now in Tony's register instead of her pocket. That meant no groceries, just the medicine and rice for a few days. She and her mother had managed on less. 3 days later, Rachel was surprised to see Daniel walk into the diner during her lunch shift. He was wearing the same paint-stained jeans, but his hair was combed and he'd shaved. He sat at one of her tables and waited patiently for her to come over. "Hi," he said when she approached. "I hope it's okay that I came back." "Of course. What can I get you?" He ordered coffee and a burger, and when Rachel brought the bill, she found a $20 bill waiting. "That's for the other night," Daniel explained. "With interest. You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. You helped me when you didn't have to. When I really needed it." He paused, looking like he wanted to say more, but just smiled instead. "Same time tomorrow?" Rachel found herself smiling back. "We'll be here." And he was there the next day. And the day after that. Within 2 weeks, Daniel coming in for lunch had become part of Rachel's routine. He always ordered simply, usually just soup or a sandwich, and they'd chat for a few minutes when the diner wasn't too busy. Rachel learned that he was looking for steady work, picking up odd jobs here and there. Daniel learned that Rachel was taking care of her mother and saving every penny she could. Neither of them talked about how hard things were, but they both understood anyway. There was a comfort in that understanding, in talking to someone who knew what it meant to count every dollar. What Rachel didn't notice was that Daniel's tips were getting bigger, or that sometimes when she turned away, he'd watch her with an expression that mixed gratitude with something that looked almost like guilt. And she certainly didn't notice the expensive watch he'd stopped wearing, or the way he chose his words carefully whenever she asked about his life before they met. All she knew was that she'd made a friend, and in a life that felt like one long, exhausting shift, that meant more than she could say. 3 months had passed since that rainy night, and Daniel had become as much a part of Ruby's diner as the worn red booths and the crackling radio behind the counter. He came in every single day around noon, always sitting at table 7 in Rachel's section, always ordering something modest. Rachel had started looking forward to those lunch hours. In a job where most customers barely looked at her, where she was just the person who brought food and refilled coffee, Daniel actually saw her. He asked about her day. He remembered things she'd mentioned weeks ago. He laughed at her jokes. "Your mom doing any better?" Daniel asked one Thursday afternoon, stirring sugar into his coffee. Rachel shrugged as she wiped down the table next to his. "About the same. The new medication helps with the pain, but you know how it is. Good days and bad days, and I'm sorry. That must be hard. We manage." Rachel smiled, though her eyes were tired. She's tougher than she looks. "Yesterday she actually made dinner. First time in 2 weeks. That's great, Rachel. Really." There was something about the way he said it, like he genuinely cared, that made Rachel's chest feel warm. Most people asked about her mother out of politeness and clearly didn't want to hear the real answer. Daniel was different. "What about you?" Rachel asked, sliding into the booth across from him during her break. Tony didn't like when she sat with customers, but the lunch rush was over and he was in the back. "Any luck with the job search?" Daniel looked down at his coffee. "Here and there. Did some painting work last week. Helped a guy move his office. Nothing permanent yet, but I'm still looking." Rachel frowned. She'd noticed his clothes were always clean but worn. The same 3 shirts rotating through the week. Shoes that had been repaired more than once. "Are you eating enough?" "I mean, besides when you come here?" "I'm fine," Daniel said quickly. "Too quickly, Daniel." He met her eyes and sighed. "I'm managing, really. Don't worry about me," but Rachel did worry. Over the next few weeks, she started doing little things. She'd bring him soup and say the kitchen made too much and it would just go to waste. She'd accidentally bring him the larger portion of whatever he ordered. Once, when she noticed him shivering in his thin jacket as winter approached, she brought her father's old coat from home. "I can't take this," Daniel protested. But Rachel pushed it into his hands. It's just sitting in my closet. My dad would have wanted someone to use it, please. Daniel held the coat like it was made of gold. Thank you, he said softly. You're too kind to me, Rachel. You know that? Everyone deserves kindness, she replied simply. What Rachel didn't know was that every time she turned her back, Daniel would slip extra money under his coffee cup. A 20 here, a 30 there, always more than his bill. He told her it was from odd jobs, that he'd had a good week. Rachel would find the money after he left and feel grateful that things were looking up for him, but then she'd notice how thin he was getting, how his shirts hung looser on his frame, and late at night she'd lie awake worrying that he was giving her money he needed for himself. So she started tucking bills back into his jacket pocket when he wasn't looking, or accidentally giving him back too much change. They developed a strange, unspoken dance of trying to take care of each other, neither one willing to admit how much they were struggling. The other waitresses noticed, of course. Linda, who'd worked at Ruby's for 15 years, cornered Rachel by the coffee machine one afternoon. You need to be careful with that guy, Linda said, refilling the sugar dispensers. What guy? Your daily regular, Daniel. You're getting attached. Rachel felt her face heat up. I'm not attached. He's just a friend. Linda raised an eyebrow. Honey, I've worked here long enough to know the difference between a friend and something more. The way you two look at each other. That's not just friendship. That's ridiculous. He's just someone who needs a little help right now. And what about you? You need help too. I've seen you paying for his meals out of your own pocket. Rachel, you can barely afford to feed yourself. I'm fine. You're wearing the same pair of sneakers you wore last year and they've got holes in them. When was the last time you bought yourself something new? Something that wasn't for your mother? Rachel didn't have an answer for that. She grabbed a coffee pot and went back to the floor, but Linda's words stuck with her. That evening, Daniel stayed later than usual. The diner was quiet, just a couple of truck drivers at the counter and an elderly woman nursing a piece of pie in the corner booth. Rachel sat across from Daniel during her break and he pulled something from his bag. I made you something, he said, looking almost shy. It was a drawing, a beautiful pencil sketch of Ruby's diner, showing the front window with the neon sign, the way the light spilled out onto the sidewalk. In the window, he'd drawn Rachel holding a coffee pot, smiling. Daniel, this is beautiful. I didn't know you could draw. I used to do it more. Before, he trailed off, then shook his head. Anyway, I wanted to thank you. For everything. I know I say it a lot, but I mean it. These past few months coming here, talking to you, it's meant more to me than you know. Rachel looked at the drawing, at the care he'd put into every line. I should be thanking you. You make this place feel less like just a job. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and Rachel found herself studying his face. Really looking at him. Daniel had kind eyes, the kind that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. There was something about him that felt solid, safe, like someone who'd been through hard times but hadn't let it make him hard. Can I ask you something? Daniel said suddenly. Sure. You mentioned once that you wanted to open a bakery. Do you still think about that? Rachel laughed, but there was sadness in it. Sometimes. Usually at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep. My grandmother taught me to bake when I was little. She had this way of making everything special, you know? Even just regular bread felt like magic when she made it. What would you call it? Your bakery? I don't know. Something simple, warm. Maybe just Rachel's. She shook her head. It's silly. A pipe dream. It's not silly, Daniel said firmly. Dreams aren't silly. What kind of things would you make? And Rachel found herself talking. Really talking. About the cinnamon rolls her grandmother used to make on Sunday mornings. About how she'd experiment with different recipes on her days off, using the cheap ingredients she could afford. About the little notebook she kept hidden in her dresser, filled with business plans and menu ideas and sketches of what the bakery might look like. Daniel listened to every word, asking questions that showed he was really paying attention. What kind of flour did she prefer? Had she thought about catering? What was her signature recipe? My grandmother's apple cake, Rachel said without hesitation. It's perfect. Not too sweet, and the apples get all soft and the cinnamon. It just tastes like home, you know? I'd love to try it someday. Maybe I'll make you one, Rachel said, and then felt embarrassed. I mean, if I can afford the ingredients. Apples are expensive right now. Daniel's expression changed just for a second. Something flickered across his face that Rachel couldn't quite read. It looked almost like pain. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said, smiling again. "Just thinking about how amazing that sounds. You're going to have that bakery someday, Rachel. I believe that." "You're sweet," she said, patting his hand. "A dreamer like me." But as Rachel went back to work, she didn't see the way Daniel stared at his hands. She didn't see him pull out his phone and type something quickly before putting it away. She didn't know that he sat there for another 20 minutes after she cleared his table, wrestling with something heavy in his mind. All she knew was that she'd made a friend who believed in her dreams. And that felt like a rare and precious thing in a world that usually just saw her as someone to bring the check. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. Rachel was refilling the napkin dispensers when she heard the sound of an expensive car engine outside. In this neighborhood, that was unusual enough to make people look up. Through the window, she watched a sleek black Mercedes pull up to the curb. A woman in a sharp business suit stepped out, looking completely out of place on the worn sidewalk. She had perfectly styled hair, designer heels, and the kind of confidence that came from never having to check a price tag. The woman walked straight into Ruby's diner, and her eyes scanned the room like she was looking for someone. Rachel saw Daniel freeze in his booth, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. "Mr. Blackwood," the woman called out, her voice crisp and professional. Rachel looked around confused. Who was Mr. Blackwood? But then she saw Daniel stand up, and something about his posture completely changed. His shoulders went back. His expression shifted from the gentle, tired look she knew to something harder, more guarded. "Victoria," he said quietly, "what are you doing here?" The woman walked over to his booth holding a tablet. "Sir, you've missed 3 board meetings. The investors are getting nervous. We need your approval on the Anderson project, and the deadline is tomorrow." Rachel felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. "Sir, board meetings?" She moved closer, pretending to wipe down a nearby table, her heart pounding. "I told you I needed time," Daniel said, but his voice sounded different, authoritative. Nothing like the soft-spoken man who'd been coming to the diner for months. "With respect, Mr. Blackwood, this has gone on long enough. 3 months of living like this?" Victoria glanced around the diner with barely concealed distaste. "Your experiment, or whatever this is, it's affecting the company. Blackwood Industries needs its CEO. Rachel's hands went numb. Blackwood Industries. She knew that name. Everyone in the neighborhood knew it. They were the real estate company buying up buildings all over downtown. The company that was tearing down old businesses and putting up luxury apartments that nobody local could afford. The company that had just sent eviction notices to her apartment building. "I'll be there tomorrow," Daniel said firmly. "Now please leave." Victoria looked like she wanted to argue, but something in his expression stopped her. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. The car will pick you up at your penthouse." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and sir, your mother called. She wants to know if you're coming to the charity gala this weekend." After Victoria left, the diner was completely silent except for the hum of the old refrigerator. Daniel stood there, not moving, not looking at anyone. Slowly, his eyes found Rachel's. She was staring at him like she'd never seen him before. Because she hadn't, had she? This man, this stranger in paint-stained jeans, was actually Daniel Blackwood, the CEO, the millionaire whose face had been in the newspaper just last month, standing in front of a building they were about to demolish. Her building. "Rachel," he started, taking a step toward her. She held up her hand, stopping him. "Don't. Please let me explain." "Explain what?" Her voice was shaking. "Explain how you've been lying to me for 3 months? Explain how you let me buy you meals with my tip money while you're a millionaire. Explain how I gave you my father's coat because I thought you were cold." The other customers were watching now, but Rachel didn't care. Tears were burning in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I wasn't lying about everything," Daniel said desperately. "That first night, my wallet really was stolen. And I made a decision right then. I'd been feeling so disconnected from everything, from real people and real problems. I decided to see what it was like to live without money, without my name opening doors. I wanted to understand. Understand what? How the other half lives." Rachel's laugh was bitter. "This isn't a game, Daniel. Or should I call you Mr. Blackwood? This is my life. This is real. I know that now. Rachel, please, meeting you, getting to know you, it changed everything for me." "Changed everything?" Rachel pulled the eviction notice from her apron pocket. She'd been carrying it around for days, trying to figure out what to do. Is this you? Building C on Maple Street? That's my building. That's where my mother and I live. We have 60 days to get out. Daniel's face went pale. I didn't know you lived there. I swear I didn't know. Would it have mattered? Is that why you were asking me all those questions about my dreams? About my bakery? Were you just collecting research for your next project? See how the poor people think before you push them out? No, Rachel, it wasn't like that. I care about you. These months with you have been the most real thing in my life in years. Tony came out from the back, sensing trouble. Everything okay here? Rachel pulled off her apron, her hands shaking so badly she could barely untie it. I need to take my break. Rachel, you've got tables. Tony protested. I need a break. Now. She threw the apron on the counter and headed for the back door. Daniel followed her into the alley behind the diner. The afternoon sun was harsh, making everything look too bright, too real. Please, just listen for 1 minute, Daniel begged. Rachel spun around to face him. You let me feel sorry for you. You let me worry about whether you were eating enough. Do you know how many nights I stayed awake wondering if you had a place to sleep? I skipped meals to help you, Daniel. And the whole time you were probably going back to your penthouse and laughing about the stupid waitress who fell for your act. I never laughed. Not once, and I tried to help you too. The tips I left with money you didn't need. Don't you see the difference? When I helped you, I thought it cost me something. It did cost me something, but your help, that was just pocket change to you. It meant nothing. It meant something to me, Daniel said quietly. Everything about this meant something to me. Rachel wiped her eyes angrily. Why did you do this? Was it some kind of bet? Rich people entertainment? No, I was lost, Rachel. I spent so much time in boardrooms making decisions that affected thousands of people, but I never knew those people. My father built Blackwood Industries by understanding the community, by caring about more than just profit. I wanted to understand what he understood. I wanted to feel connected to something real again. So you used me. I got to know you, and I fell in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe. Don't, she whispered. Don't say that, it's true. Somewhere between you paying for my sandwich that first night and listening to you talk about your grandmother's recipes, I fell completely in love with you. The person you are, your kindness, your strength, the way you take care of everyone around you even when you're barely holding on yourself. You don't love me. You love the idea of me. The noble poor girl who made you feel good about yourself. That's not fair. Fair? Rachel's voice rose. You want to talk about fair? I'm about to lose my home because of your company. My mother needs expensive treatment that I can barely afford. I work 12-hour shifts and still can't make ends meet. And you've been playing pretend, living my life like it's some kind of adventure you can walk away from whenever you want. Don't talk to me about fair. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. I know I handled this wrong. But Rachel, I can help you now. Let me help you. With what? Your guilt money? She shook her head. I don't want your help. I don't want anything from you. Rachel, please. No. You know what the worst part is? I trusted you. I told you things I've never told anyone. My dreams, my fears, my hopes. And the whole time you were just an observer. A tourist in my life. That's not true. Go back to your real life, Daniel. Or Mr. Blackwood, whoever you really are. Go back to your board meetings and your penthouse and your charity galas. And leave me alone. Rachel walked back into the diner, leaving Daniel standing alone in the alley. She grabbed her apron, tied it back on with shaking hands, and picked up a coffee pot. She had tables to serve, bills to pay, a life to somehow keep together now that it felt like it was falling apart. Through the window, she watched Daniel finally walk away, his shoulders slumped. The Mercedes was waiting for him down the street. He looked back once at the diner, but Rachel had already turned away. She didn't cry. Not then. She had 4 more hours left on her shift, and tears wouldn't pay her mother's medical bills. Tears wouldn't find them a new apartment. Tears wouldn't fix the fact that she'd fallen for someone who didn't really exist. But later that night, alone in her tiny apartment, Rachel would pull out the drawing Daniel had made of the diner. She'd look at the version of herself he'd drawn, smiling in the window, and she'd finally let herself cry for what she'd thought they had, and for the fool she'd been to believe in it. 2 weeks had passed since that awful day in the alley. Daniel hadn't come back to the diner. Rachel told herself she was relieved. But every time the door chimed, her heart would jump before she could stop it. Then she'd see it was just a regular customer, and something in her chest would sink. She hated that she still looked for him. Hated that she missed him. The eviction clock was ticking. 45 days left. Rachel had spent every spare moment looking at apartment listings, but everything was either too expensive or too far from the hospital where her mother got treatment. Some nights she'd lie awake doing math that never worked out, no matter how many times she tried. Her mother had noticed something was wrong. "You seem sad, sweetheart," she'd said that morning at breakfast. "Did something happen?" "Just tired, Mom, don't worry about me." But her mother knew her too well. "It's that young man, isn't it? The one you talked about, Daniel?" Rachel had never told her mother the whole story. How could she explain that she'd fallen for someone who'd been lying the entire time? That her heart ached for a person who didn't even really exist? On her break one afternoon, Rachel was sorting through the mail in the back office when Tony called her name. "Hey, Rachel, someone left something for you at the counter." She walked out to find a large envelope with her name on it. No return address. Inside was a letter and several other documents. Rachel's hand started shaking as she recognized Daniel's handwriting. "Dear Rachel," the letter began. "I know you told me to leave you alone, and I'm trying to respect that. But there are things you need to know. Things I should have told you from the beginning. I'm not writing this to make excuses or ask for forgiveness. I just need you to know the truth." Rachel almost put the letter down, almost threw it away. But something made her keep reading. "That first night when I came to the diner, my wallet really was stolen. But you're right that what happened next was a choice. I'd been feeling empty for months, maybe years. My father built Blackwood Industries from nothing. And he always said the secret was never forgetting where you came from, never losing touch with real people. But after he died and I took over, I realized I'd become exactly what he warned me against. A businessman who only saw numbers and profits, not people. When you paid for my meal that night, something shifted. You didn't know me, didn't know if you'd ever see that money again, but you helped anyway. I wanted to understand that kind of goodness. So I decided to spend some time living differently, seeing what life was like without my money and my name protecting me. I thought it would be a few days, maybe a week. I didn't plan on meeting you." Rachel's vision was blurring, but she kept reading. "I fell in love with you so gradually that I didn't realize it was happening until I was already in too deep. Every conversation, every smile, every moment you showed kindness to someone who didn't deserve it made me fall harder. I kept telling myself I'd come clean tomorrow, next week, soon, but I was terrified. Terrified that you'd look at me exactly the way you did in that alley, like I was a stranger, like everything we had was a lie. The thing is, Rachel, it wasn't a lie, not to me. The person I was with you, that was the most honest version of myself I've been in years. You saw me. Not my money, not my company, not my last name, just me. And I've never felt more real than I did sitting in that diner booth talking to you. I'm not asking you to forgive me or to give me another chance. I just need you to know that meeting you changed my life. You made me want to be better, to do better, and I'm trying to do that now." Rachel set down the letter and looked at the other documents in the envelope. The first was a legal notice. She read it once, then again, not quite believing what she was seeing. The building project on Maple Street had been canceled. Not just delayed, completely canceled. All eviction notices were void. The building would remain as affordable housing, with Blackwood Industries funding necessary repairs and upgrades. There was more. Rachel shuffled through page after page of documents. Blackwood Industries was restructuring its entire approach to urban development. They were creating a community advisory board, establishing a fund for small business owners affected by their projects, partnering with local organizations to ensure affordable housing in every new development. The last document made Rachel's hands shake so badly she almost dropped it. It was a business proposal. A detailed plan for a bakery on the ground floor of the Maple Street building, with Rachel listed as the owner. Equipment renovations, initial inventory, marketing, everything was outlined with costs and timelines. At the bottom was a note in Daniel's handwriting. "This isn't charity. This is an investment opportunity. I've included projections based on the neighborhood demographics and your recipes, which I remember you describing in detail. The terms are standard for a small business loan, and you'd own the business outright. You can say no. You can tear this up and never think about it again. But I wanted you to know that your dream is possible, that you deserve to see it come true." Rachel sat down hard on the nearest chair. Tony was watching her with concern. "You okay?" I don't know, she said honestly. That evening, Rachel found herself walking. She wasn't sure where she was going until she ended up outside Blackwood Industries headquarters. The glass building stretched up into the evening sky, looking cold and intimidating. She'd never felt so small. She almost turned around. What was she even doing here? But then she thought about the letter, about the canceled eviction, about the bakery proposal, about Daniel's face in that alley when she'd told him to leave. Rachel walked into the lobby. The security guard looked up, clearly surprised to see someone in a waitress uniform. Can I help you? I need to see Daniel Blackwood. Do you have an appointment? No, but please. Tell him Rachel is here. He'll know who I am. The guard looked skeptical but picked up his phone. Rachel waited, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She was probably making a mistake. He was probably in some important meeting. He probably wouldn't even want to see her after what she'd said. The guard hung up. Top floor? He said to send you right up. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. Rachel watched the numbers climb, wondering what she was going to say. She was angry at him. She was grateful to him. She was confused and hurt, and maybe still in love with him, and she didn't know how all of those feelings could exist at the same time. The elevator doors opened directly into a massive office. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city spread out below, lights twinkling in the dusk, and there was Daniel standing by the window, looking exactly like the man she'd known and nothing like him at all. He was wearing an expensive suit. His hair was neatly styled. He looked every inch the CEO, but when he turned and saw her, his expression was pure relief and something that looked like hope. Rachel, he breathed. I got your letter, she said, staying by the elevator, not ready to come closer yet. And the documents. I meant every word. The building project. You canceled it. I should have done it weeks ago. You were right. I was making decisions that affected real people's lives without thinking about the consequences, without caring about the consequences. Rachel pulled the bakery proposal from her bag. Is this real? Or is it guilt? Daniel finally moved closer, though he stopped several feet away, respecting her space. It's real. I had my team research it. The neighborhood needs a good bakery. You have the skills and the passion. It makes business sense. But it's also guilt, Rachel said quietly. He nodded. Yes, it's also guilt. And it's love. And it's me trying to show you that I heard everything you said. That I'm trying to be better. I don't know if I can trust you, I know. I don't expect you to. Not yet, maybe not ever. Rachel looked down at the proposal in her hands. Her dream laid out in neat typed pages. Everything she'd ever wanted being handed to her by someone who'd broken her heart. I need time, she finally said, to think about all of this, to figure out what I want. Take all the time you need. There's no pressure, no deadline. The offer stands whether you talk to me again or not. Rachel turned back to the elevator, then paused. Daniel? Yes? Thank you. For the building. For everyone who lives there. That matters. As the elevator doors closed, Rachel saw Daniel's reflection in the polished metal, and for just a second, he looked like the man who used to sit in her section at Ruby's diner. Lost, hopeful, and very much alone. 3 weeks went by, and Rachel couldn't stop thinking about the bakery proposal. She'd read it so many times the pages were starting to wear at the edges. Every number, every detail, every possibility. It was everything she'd ever dreamed about, laid out like a roadmap. But every time she picked up the phone to call Daniel, she'd remember the look on his face when Victoria had called him Mr. Blackwood in the diner. She'd remember feeling like a fool, and she'd put the phone back down. Her mother found her at the kitchen table one morning. The proposal spread out in front of her for the 100th time. Are you going to keep staring at those papers? Or are you going to do something about it? Her mother asked, settling into the chair across from her. I don't know what to do, Mom. Yes, you do. You're just scared. Rachel looked up, surprised. Her mother smiled gently, that knowing smile that meant she'd seen right through to the heart of things. You think I don't know what's been happening? That young man who used to make you smile every day stopped coming around. Then you got that proposal. Then you've been miserable ever since, trying to decide between your pride and your heart. It's not that simple, isn't it? Her mother reached across the table and took Rachel's hand. Sweetheart, I raised you to be strong and independent, but I never meant for you to be so strong that you can't accept help, or so independent that you can't let someone love you. He lied to me. He did, and that was wrong. But people make mistakes, Rachel. Even good people. The question is, has he tried to make it right? Rachel thought about the canceled eviction. About all the families who got to stay in their homes because Daniel had changed his mind. About the community programs Blackwood Industries was starting. She'd been following the news even though she told herself she didn't care. He's trying, Rachel admitted quietly. Then maybe it's time you let him. Not for his sake, for yours. That afternoon, Rachel made a decision. She called the number on the business proposal and asked to speak to Daniel's office. When his assistant answered, Rachel almost hung up. But she didn't. This is Rachel. Tell him I want to talk about the bakery. 2 days later, Rachel stood outside an empty storefront on the ground floor of her apartment building. Daniel was already there waiting. He looked nervous, his hands shoved in his pockets, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "Hi," he said when he saw her. "Hi." They stood there awkwardly for a moment, this man in his expensive suit and this woman in her work clothes, with so much unsaid between them. Daniel unlocked the door and they stepped inside. The space was bigger than Rachel had imagined. Empty, but full of possibility. Sunlight streamed through the front windows. She could already picture where everything would go. The display case here, the ovens in the back, tables by the window. "What do you think?" Daniel asked. Rachel turned in a slow circle, taking it all in. "It's perfect. The lease terms are in the proposal. But Rachel, I need you to know something. This is yours if you want it, whether you ever speak to me again or not. That's not a condition." "I know," Rachel said, and she did know. That was what these past few weeks had shown her. Daniel wasn't trying to buy her forgiveness. He was trying to give her the tools to build the life she deserved. "I'm scared," she admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "What if I fail? What if I take your money and the bakery doesn't work and I lose everything? Then you'll have tried. That's more than most people can say." Daniel moved a little closer, but still kept his distance. "Rachel, you're one of the smartest, hardest-working people I've ever met. If anyone can make this work, it's you. Why do you believe in me so much? Because I've watched you do the impossible every single day. You work 12-hour shifts, take care of your mother, help everyone around you, and still find reasons to smile. You're the strongest person I know." Rachel felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm still angry at you. For lying. For making me think you were someone you weren't. I know. You have every right to be. But I miss you," she whispered. "I miss talking to you. I miss how you listened like what I said actually mattered. I miss my friend. I miss you too. Every single day." They stood there in that empty bakery and Rachel made a choice. Not to forget what happened. Not to pretend it didn't hurt. But to try. To see if maybe something real could grow from the mess they'd made. "If we do this," Rachel said slowly, "if I take the bakery and we try to be friends again, or whatever this is, we do it honestly. No more secrets, no more lies, I promise. Complete honesty from now on. And I'm not doing this because you're rich or because I feel like I owe you. I'm doing this because it's my dream, and I'm tired of being too scared to chase it." Daniel smiled, really smiled, for the first time since that awful day. Deal. Over the next 6 months, Rachel threw herself into building the bakery. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done. There were permits and inspections and 1,000 decisions to make. She worked at the diner in the mornings and renovated the bakery in the afternoons and evenings. Daniel helped when she let him, but he was careful never to take over, never to make her feel like it wasn't truly hers. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt their friendship. Coffee meetings to discuss the business turned into longer conversations. Daniel told her about the pressure of running his father's company, about the loneliness of always being seen as a bank account instead of a person. Rachel told him about her fears, her dreams, the little things that made her happy. It wasn't like before. It was better, because it was real. The day the bakery opened, there was a line around the block. Rachel stood behind the counter in her new apron, looking at the name painted on the window in elegant letters. Rachel's. Her grandmother would have been so proud. Her mother was there, sitting at the best table, looking healthier than she had in months. Linda from the diner came, bringing half the staff with her. Even Tony showed up, grumbling that she'd better not forget where she came from. And Daniel was there, standing at the back of the line like any other customer. When he finally made it to the counter, Rachel smiled at him. "What can I get you?" "What do you recommend?" "The apple cake. It's my grandmother's recipe." "Perfect. I'll have a slice of that and a coffee." Rachel rang him up and Daniel pulled out his wallet. How much do I owe you? For you? Rachel pretended to think about it. Double. Daniel laughed, that genuine laugh she'd missed so much. Double it is. As Rachel handed him his cake and coffee, their fingers touched briefly. Something passed between them, something warm and hopeful and worth fighting for. Thank you, Daniel said quietly, for giving me another chance. Thank you for seeing me, Rachel replied. Really seeing me. That evening, after the last customer had left and Rachel was cleaning up, Daniel stayed to help. They worked in comfortable silence, and Rachel realized this was what she wanted. Not the fairy tale, not the rescue. Just this. Two people who'd hurt each other and forgiven each other, building something real together. Hey, Daniel, Rachel said as they were locking up. Yeah? Would you want to have dinner sometime? Like, not a business meeting. An actual date? Daniel's face lit up. I would love that. Good, but you're paying. After all those meals I bought you, you owe me at least 50 dinners. I'll buy you 100 dinners. 1,000, Rachel laughed, and it felt good. It felt like coming home. 6 months after that, on the 1-year anniversary of the bakery's opening, Daniel proposed. Not with a flashy public gesture or an enormous ring. Just the two of them in the bakery after closing, with a simple band and a simple question. I love you. The real you. The person who challenges me and inspires me and makes me want to be better every single day. Will you marry me? Rachel said yes, because sometimes the best love stories are the ones that start with mistakes and grow into something beautiful. Because people can change, because forgiveness is possible, and because dreams, real dreams, are worth fighting for. They got married in a small ceremony at the bakery, surrounded by the people who mattered most. Rachel wore her grandmother's dress. Her mother cried happy tears. And when Daniel kissed his bride, he tasted like cinnamon and apples in coming home. Ruby's diner still stands a few blocks away, and sometimes Rachel and Daniel go there for breakfast. They sit in the same booth where they first became friends, where Daniel learned what it meant to be seen for who he really was, and where Rachel learned that taking a chance on someone, even when it's scary, can change everything. The bakery thrives, not because of Daniel's money, but because of Rachel's talent and heart. She still works hard, but now it's for something that's truly hers. And every day Daniel stops by for coffee and whatever Rachel's baked that morning. She still sometimes charges him double just to make him laugh. And every time someone walks through that door hungry or struggling, Rachel remembers a rainy night and a simple act of kindness. She remembers that everyone deserves a second chance, a helping hand, someone who sees them for who they really are. Because in the end, that's what love is. Not perfection, but truth. Not rescuing, but seeing. Not fixing each other, but growing together. And sometimes it starts with an $8 sandwich and a waitress who chose to be kind when she didn't have to be.